Well, hello everyone. Happy Wednesday. I think it is today. So guys, I know many of you joined me last week where I did a couple streams on the wonderful world of social emotional learning. And we talked with Sloan Ratchmuth about how insanely terrifying it is. We watched a training on it by Castle to, show exactly like what they're telling people it is. But today I wanted to bring back one of my friends, Justice Graves. You guys know Justice. He's been on the channel before. He is like one of the education gurus that I talk to about all of this stuff because he keeps track of it. He goes through all sorts of policy and all sorts of papers that might be really boring for some of us, but like this is like Justice's jam, and he's really, really good at it. Um, and he
I
explains
mean,
things.
it's true.
Go ahead.
No, I said, I mean, it's true. I mean, part of my job is to go through stuff like that, my normal day job. So,
I mean, I thank God for people like you, man, and that's why I wanted to bring him here today because Justice has been doing some research into social emotional learning in schools in regards to how it is being implemented in schools through the American Rescue Plan Act. And just to like, just in case you don't feel like sitting around and watching the entire stream, the too long didn't read is that if you have a child in public schools, social emotional learning is in the schools. It is in the schools. It was mandated in the act. And so Justice is going to be walking us through some research that he's done specifically in Arizona, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire, I believe, right, Justice?
yes, I will be talking about those three states in particular, more Arizona, but there's going to be bits and pieces about Massachusetts and New Hampshire to sort of just fill in the story of what is going on, because I think people are really not. This is today's stream isn't going to just be about ARPA, and I want people to understand that. This is going to be probably one of the most concrete, connected situations that I'm going to try and explain us through, because this is not just about where the money's going. It's where the money's always sort of been and where these issues have always been. So that's why I sort of don't even know how to start with this, because it's such a bad. I don't have good things to say, people. I'm just going to start off with that.
I mean, I think that people need to know this because listen, we've all been so focused on critical race theory for the last, year or so, and for good reason. Critical race theory is scary. I think what we're starting to understand though is that social emotional learning is much scarier than critical race theory. And some people are kind of billing social emotional learning as the delivery mechanism for critical race theory. It's not just that. It's the delivery mechanism for every single bad idea that the left has. And someone made a really good analogy. I think it was Melissa made a really good analogy in the chat on my stream on Friday when she said that social emotional learning is what they're doing to rewire the hardware of children's brains. And then they can plug in any software program that they want, whether it be critical race theory or something way, way, way worse. They can plug it can be absolutely anything. And so we want to go over today how this is being implemented and specifically what people need to watch out for. And this is going to be a little bit more of a wonky stream, but you guys are going to get a lot of great information. So, Justice, I kind of just want to turn over the floor to you. Where should we start?
So I guess I'll just kind of go through with what my thought process was going into this to sort of explain, like, how did I come up with these things? So we've all suspected for a long time that the CARES money wasn't being used appropriately. We had said it was being used for critical race theory for a while. This was back a couple months ago. We had suspected, hey, there's money flowing around. What's going on? Nobody did any substantial research on it. And then I went onto a school committee and I got to see a few things and realized that the CARES Acts weren't really the problem. How I've described the CARES Acts upon further analysis is that they were like a primer mechanism. They primed up schools so that they'd have the extra funding to do all sorts of extra projects that they wanted to do that they couldn't do for the past, 20, 30 years of public education. So I looked at CARES, wasn't concerned about that. Then I started looking at ARPA, and I started realizing that social emotional learning was popping up in all of the states around the same time back in March when ARPA got passed. And I said, okay, so why did that happen? I don't know of any, at the time I'm like, well, there's no language in the US federal government that says social emotional learning. Well, then I said, okay, I'm going to look into this. So I went on to the Department of Ed's website. So one thing that I want to make people to understand is that there's actually multiple parts of the American Rescue Plan. The part that we're talking about today is called ARP-ESSER. ARP-ESSER, ARPESSER, or also known as ESSER 3. You also probably, if you were, you heard about the ESSER monies, ESSER 1 and ESSER 2, because they match up with CARES 1 and CARES 2. That's probably a familiar terminology that you know. Municipalities and cities don't have any of the sorts of requirements that school districts do. School district requirements for federal funds are totally different. And so when we talk about this, I want you to understand, just because your town accepted ARPA money doesn't mean that your town is doing it. It is specifically your school districts. Don't go marching into your city council. They don't know what's going on. They barely understand the requirements at the city level themselves. But your school districts, it's a part of it. And I want people to understand that. So I think the first thing, so kind of going back, I'm sorry, jumping around a little bit here, sorry. But I went through onto the state's Department of not the state's Department of Education website, the federal Department of Education website. Back in about July, I had seen that they were starting to post the public plans for ARPA. I didn't know where to find the law itself back then. I just knew, what are the state's plans for these and where can I find them? I saw it, Massachusetts was put up, a few other ones were put up, but it wasn't a lot of substance yet because July was the deadline for them to file. So I said, okay. When we did that live stream a couple weeks back with you and Deb, I realized, hey, wait a minute. I should go back and check on that website. So I checked back on that website. All the states were there. I was like, okay, good. It's been past time. I can look at that. And they have on the website this section about highlights. And that's the first thread that I did. So the states, what happened was that when they put in their plans, the federal government and the state government said, we want to do public press releases about the good things that are in these plans. Mm-hmm. So they came up with a list of items and they did press releases and they put them on the website. So I said, what are they actually, in their own words, chanting about? And the first thread that I did that I think got people's attention when I had said to you, you have no idea how bad ARPA money is because I don't know how bad ARPA money is, was where I found in about 18, and really it's probably over 20 of the state governments, the state educational groups, the state boards of education were chanting that they had added social emotional learning, critical pedagogy, and what was the third thing? It was equity. They were chanting about equity and how they had put that into their programs to use the ARPA money for, in their own words, in the ESSER stuff. And if you don't believe me, I'm going to actually pull up a few screenshots in just a second so that way we can look at how bad. So Carlin, if you want to pull up my screen, I can show you just so that we can review with people how some of this is. Am I up on the screen?
Yeah, you're good.
Screen up?
Good to go. Yeah.
Okay. So like in this state plan highlight, Connecticut is very excited that they're doing social, emotional, and mental health for their students and staff. They're very, very excited. Delaware, social, emotional. Iowa, social, emotional. Illinois, a lot of social, emotional. Maine is doing like 3 bad things. So they're doing social, emotional learning, expanding restorative alternatives to exclusionary discipline. What this means, and Deb has done a good job at, Deb Philman at The Reason We Learn has done a good job of explaining this. Alternatives to exclusionary discipline means that they're going to determine if they're going to discipline your kids based on race. And then student-centered learning means that the students teach themselves and the teacher just facilitates. So that's not really anything substantive. So just so that you're aware of what the top priorities for Maine are. They're not, this has nothing to do with education. I just want to point that out. And this is taxpayer dollars going for it. Massachusetts, chants about culturally responsive support. And the list just keeps going on. It's not good. New York, actually, I think this is trademarked culturally responsive sustaining framework, which Deb had found on her. Yeah, no, it's just, and this is what they chanted about. This is And I want people to understand what you're looking at on my screen. This is not from a newspaper. This is not from an investigative journalist. This is from your federal and your state governments. They wrote this. This is a document from them. This is a press release. So I want people to get it through their heads that they're openly talking about this stuff. You just have to listen for it now. They don't care anymore.
Yeah, and this didn't come from the school boards either.
No, it didn't. This is coming from your governor's offices, your state boards of education, your federal board of education. This is coming from them.
Yeah. So going and yelling at the school boards is not going to work to fix this. I just want to make sure we hit that point home.
No, it won't. And I'm actually going to get into it a little bit later on this stream, why that is almost completely useless at this point, because there's some other elements to this that I think people need to be aware of. So I am going to, people can see my screen. I don't really care at this point. Let's go into, I don't know how we want to start with this. So one of the first things that I did was I decided to look at Arizona. I'm going to pull up Arizona. Am I still on the screen, Carlin?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, so this might be a little bit difficult to see because this was done as a screenshot, but this is Arizona's state ESSER plan highlights. This is actually what they had put. Now, Arizona on the surface does not look dangerous, but what I did was I looked to the bottom, and they, there are a few things about sustaining safe operations, etc. And what I realized was through this highlight here, and this highlight says, the team has also developed and implemented principal and supervisor of principal professional learning academies and building leadership to build leadership capacity in school districts. And what that told me was, wait a minute, I don't know what is in their plan yet because I hadn't read everything, but what are they teaching at these academies? And they have administrative and teaching standards statewide. This is what this section told me. So I said, okay, I'm going to go look at their state website and take a deeper dive on that. That's actually how I started. So I went and I looked at their professional administrative standards. We're talking about Arizona State right now. And I want to explain this. Yes, this is actually the most updated version. They don't update their administrative standards often at the state level. So yes, this is from 2016, and they haven't updated it since. So this is the standards for professional administrators in the state of Arizona. So I want people to understand this is all the way back in 2016. And if we go a little bit further, we'll look at Standard C, Standard 2. One of the standards is to safeguard and promote the values of democracy, individual freedom, responsibility, equity, social justice, community, and diversity. Social emotional insights and understanding of all students and staff members' backgrounds and cultures. And I'm actually going to show you a little bit later on the stream. There is a definition for all students and staff members that the states are using, and it doesn't actually mean all students and staff members. It means all students and staff members were applicable except when race, sex, etc. applies. So it's even more ridiculous.
Wow.
I can't even see your face, so I'm going to pretend that it's not a good face.
It's not a good face. It's not a good face at all. That's okay.
We're going to go to the next wonderful piece of information. So, equitable access. Administrators in Arizona are supposed to confront and alter institutional biases of student marginalization. They're supposed to promote the preparation of students to live productively in and contribute to the diverse cultures of a global society. And they're supposed to have cultural competence and responsiveness.
I just want to emphasize again, this was written in 2016.
And this is from the State Board of Education, by the way. This is the state board. So they voted on this. Culturally responsive, identities and habits of learners, effective pedagogy, differentiated and it's great. They also do some pretty other bad things in here, but I don't want to keep going because it's not going to. Oh, Here's another evil thing that Arizona does. And Arizona did this not only in their administrative standards, but I'm going to show you a little bit later on in the stream that they did it in their ARPA money. They conflated ethical and equitable practices together. So equity is ethics now. I want to just make this very obvious.
Did they
this not
define
only
equity
appears
anywhere?
here. No.
Okay. I mean, so that means that there is a good sporting chance that they actually don't know what they mean when they say equity.
Yeah, there's a good sporting chance, but this is the same document that we're on. That is in the same document as promoting social justice. So I'm going to take a pretty big hint that it's not the good form of equity. I just want to throw that out there. I have no good feeling about this. And cultural responsiveness. So I understand that they don't define equity in here, but Arizona doesn't define a lot of things that the other states define. And yeah, this whole section here does not bode confidence. And I want to just remind you, this is just for the administrators. We're not even into ARPA. This is just the direction that I went into. The reason why I did this was to understand the language that Arizona was using for their educational standards so that I could understand when I went into the ARPA money, what they were talking about.
That makes sense.
So, yes. Arizona's professional teaching standards, these were actually less woke. And I believe these were also back in 2016 as well, but they didn't have that in the document. Social emotional learning, understands the role of language and culture, blah, blah, blah. Social emotional, equitably engaged learners, and culturally relevant content. It's just, and recognizes the potential of bias in his or her representation of the discipline and seeks to appropriately address problems of bias. So, unconscious bias.
Wow. I can't.
Wait till you see.
Well, and you know, I let's step back here for a second because you know, we've consistently talked about how we're incredibly on the back foot with all of this, and I'm going to be blunt, and we talked about this briefly before we came on the air. I am so pissed that no one has looked into this. No one. None of the blue checks have looked into it. No journalists have looked into it. You are a 23-year-old who got elected to school committee in Templeton, Massachusetts.
I know this is, I'm sorry, but I have to say this, it's pathetic because I am a computer engineering major who works in municipal government, who literally shouldn't have any ability to figure this out, and then just did a few Google searches, put a few sentences together and said, hey, logically speaking, where would this stuff be? Looked at the, the state education websites and said, oh, look, it's right there.
And the reason I bring this up is because conservative influencers on the right have completely abdicated their responsibility and to be fair, people on the left have abdicated their responsibility too. I'm not necessarily saying conservative influencers are worse than people on the left. Every single one has abdicated their responsibility to keep the public informed. But I put more responsibility on the conservatives because they're the ones that are actually supposed to care about this. And instead of doing this, which is what they should be doing, they're controlling for likes and retweets on Twitter. God damn it.
Yeah. Do you want me to move on, or do we want to complain a little bit more? Because it doesn't get better from here.
I'm good. I reserve the right. I reserved the right to complain at least 7 or 8 more times in the course of this stream, but we can move on.
No, that's fine. No, you should complain because everyone else, because I can't even see you on the screen right now. Everyone doesn't understand, but I'm literally on my screen just kind of going through things right now. But it's deep. Like, this is not good stuff.
No.
Nobody, when I saw this, and I want to just tell people, when I saw this stuff, I think I had to take a step back and stop looking at it at least 5 or 6 times because it was getting me so upset just going through and saying, how did nobody find anything? Nobody understands any of this.
It's because they don't bother. They don't bother to look because they're trying to find videos to go viral on Twitter. That's what they're doing. And it's
Yeah.
so goddamn, like, I'm so disgusted with everyone that's in this space right now. Not the good people, and we know who the good people are. And many of you are in the chat right now. You're the good people, okay? But like, I just cannot. Like, why are you and I having to do investigative journalism? All right, I'm gonna stop
Yeah,
complaining.
that's bad.
Please
Well,
continue.
no, no, no. I'll keep going through this, but no. And Carlin understands that this is not the only topic that I'm looking at right now. This is
No.
not the only thing that I'm having to do investigative stuff on. I have other stuff that like I'm getting phone calls about and I have to answer emails about because I put myself out there because nobody else wants to do it. It's just it's none of this makes any sense anymore. But I'm going to go on. So what you're looking at right now is Arizona's ARPA plan. So now what I want people to understand is we looked at the highlight from the state government. We looked at the state's definition of what its teachers and administrators are supposed to do, which is to promote social justice. They say it in their own words. That's from the State Board of Education and the Department of Education in Arizona. That's not from anybody else but them. This is also from the state of Arizona. This is their ARPA money plan, their ARP ESSER plan, and this is their executive summary. So just some highlights from it before we get deeper into the bad sections. So, for example, in their executive summary, equity for all students to achieve their full potential is an important part for them, as well as social emotional well-being and educator workforce shortages and burnout. So the labor shortage that we're seeing, which started a few months ago in the educator sphere, which has really increased the ability for legislators to lobby for more money. This situation, while no offense, I actually think it's a good thing that a lot of teachers are not going back into the workforce because the situation is so bad. It is actually one of the it's kind of like what me, you, and Deb talked about. We want teachers to leave. We want people to pull their kids out. And because of that, the state and the federal governments are panicking and they're using it as an excuse to drive more money into the system.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly what's happening.
And by the way, any training that
So,
they invest in is probably not actually going to help teachers with burnout. It's not. It's going to be this diversity nonsense.
So if you were to read an ARPA plan, you're going to notice that there's going to be an executive summary. And then after that, you're going to notice that there's going to be a lot of questions. What the federal government wants and what they are looking for is that they have, and the way that this is constructed is that after the executive summary, everything else that is not in a box is a question from the federal government to the state. Anything in a box is the state government's own words. So it's kind of like a conversation on paper, like, what are you going to do for this topic? And then the state government responds. So we can see that this isn't a box. So this is from the state government. And we know that one of their priorities is social emotional learning, trauma-sensitive training, and support for schools, free professional learning opportunities for educators to implement trauma-informed methods and new SEL competencies into their classrooms starting in the summer of 2020. So this already started last year in Arizona for SEL, summer of 2020, through school year 2020 to 2021. And then, of course, they're going to expand on it later on that they want to do it for the next year. So they've already admitted at this point that they've already started social emotional learning in 2020.
Oh, good.
They also, and this is, again, this is a good example. So this section here, if you're looking at the ARPA plans yourself, this section here is a question from the federal government. And then again, the box is from the state. Arizona also talks about data integration and how they want to have access to early childhood capacity gaps across Arizona. And what you'll find later on, if you look in their ARPA plan, is what do they mean by collecting that information? So again, this isn't a box, so this is what the state government is talking about. They want to gather social, emotional, and mental well-being data to promote, they talk about how it's problematic to get it, but they want it. They talk about how they've already been collecting data from students and they're doing it directly through surveys.
I see a keyword coming up. Panorama. Ding,
and then
ding, 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 ding.
I want to also say something before we jump on the panorama chain. The way that I found Panorama in at least one other state, because I haven't had a lot of time to look through all of these, is that Panorama is not always called Panorama. In Arizona, the reason why Panorama comes up is because they actually wrote this as like a narrative story. Like, this is what we think we're going to do with this money. And they threw Panorama in here as, if you see the full sentence, they threw it in there just as like we're thinking about it, but we don't want to commit to it yet. Because later on, they actually admit that they already have another program that they're using, and that they already use Castle, which is another big one that's a huge problem that I don't know if Sloan talked with you about, but she talked about it on Deb's channel. That Castle is another one of them.
So she did, and I just want to give
So,
people who maybe weren't didn't see that talk or any of the other talks. So there are two major providers of social emotional learning, and so basically, when social emotional learning is integrated into schools, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to do surveys out to your kids, and they're going to ask them really invasive questions like have you sold drugs on campus? Are you sexually active? How many sexual partners have you had? What is your gender identity to include trans and non-binary and gender fluid? Like all sorts of crazy things, right? Those surveys are coming from places like Panorama and Castle. And then what happens with the answers to those surveys is your students are not answering anonymously. Their answers are being tied back to the student. So the school can then stage psychological interventions based on the answers to those questions. And the teachers that your students have are very literally acting like psychologists without a license based on the answers to these surveys. Castle is funded by Bill Gates, and Panorama, which is Merrick Garland's son-in-law. That's what it is. A lot of people saying Merrick Garland's son-in-law was doing critical race theory. No, he wasn't. It's social emotional learning. That's what Panorama is, and that is funded by Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And one of the other things that I just want to point out here is that this has been going on. These types of surveys have been going on a lot longer than just now. I did not realize just how intrusive the public education sphere was, but I can tell you, as a public school student who graduated back in 2016, I got a questionnaire like that when I was graduating high school. So I've gotten questions like that when I was a minor. So I just want people to understand that. But my parents always taught me, you always put other because you shouldn't trust the government. So I just want to be, that's, you shouldn't have to tell your kids that, but I guess that's where we are.
Or tell your kids they don't have to take the surveys. Opt your kids out of the surveys. Call the school and say, you're not surveying my kids. They may or may not respect it.
I want to also, they may or may not respect it. And I want to also point out what the definition of a survey is. A survey doesn't just have to be something on paper. A survey can also be if a teacher asks your child what their sexual orientation is, that is considered a survey. If they ask your child directly, what do mommy and daddy make? Even if they're government employees and their contracts are public, you cannot ask a minor to tell you about what do mommy and daddy do for work and what do they make. That is also not, and they do that quite frequently. One of the other things I want to point out.
Hang on, I want to put out one more example, because this is something you might actually see on the Twitters, which is what the teachers.
Yes.
Well, the privilege walks are one, so privilege walks count as a survey, but it's also that like the thing where they put like the gender identity spectrum in the class and they put it up on the chalkboard and they have boy on one side and girl on the other, and they ask the students to place themselves on the gender identity spectrum. That's a survey. They can't do that.
Also, they can't do that with race either.
Yeah, they've done it with race too. Yeah,
they've done it with race. Yep, that is also a violation of the PPRA Act, which is also known as the Hatch Act. But it's hard to get that enforced. Arizona also admits that it has a Project Aware. What Sloan had talked about, and I do need to do more research on these Project Awares and Awakes. I want to point out that Castle and Panorama do not do the medical interventions for the students. That is done more at the local level, inside of nursing stations, inside of other programs. but these projects Aware and Awake are a vehicle of that. So when you see Aware and Awake, you should look at them, see if that is what your state is doing. But in North Carolina, that is what this is a Project Aware is their vehicle, or it's a Project Aware or a Project Awake that is their vehicle that gives a lot of these students the ability for medical treatments that they wouldn't otherwise have, whether it's antidepressants or hormones. So I just wanted to point that out.
And are they
and that's without parental consent.
That was exactly what I was just going to ask. So they are giving those medical treatments, whether antidepressants or hormones, to children without their parents' consent.
Sloan knows more about this, and Deb does as well. They know more about the state rules on that, but that is in North Carolina, that is entirely correct. In Massachusetts, that is entirely correct. Other states like California, we already know that is entirely correct. So I just wanted to make that explicit right now, that you need to look at your own state's rules to understand that North Carolina has one of the worst. They can just give a kid anything, basically. You know, Deb has talked about it at length, that it's not a good state for parental rights in terms of medical treatment.
Justice, one second. I just got a super chat, and I wanna take it. I requested, TPS says, okay. I requested SEL curriculum links/publications and opted out of surveys and writing today. We'll be considering homeschooling depending on the reply. Dude, just move forward. Move forward as though you're going to do homeschooling.
Yeah, do homeschool. Yeah, no. This is the thing. Public records requests are not easy. They can be costly. I know Nicole Solis has done a couple. I'm going to just be upfront, and I've been doing a couple of public records requests on other things, but it's not, there is a later cost to all of this. I just want people to understand that it's in all your states. I don't know how else to, I mean, this is Arizona. This is Doug Ducey's state. We're still on Arizona. I haven't even showed you New Hampshire or Massachusetts yet. I just want people that, like, we're still on one state.
Go ahead.
So on Arizona, I'm highlighting this because this is what they did with the CARES Act money and the CARES 2 money. Because they actually had to go, they went back through and they explained what they used it on. So Arizona actually decided for their CARES 1 money, and this is where I'm telling you that CARES 1 and CARES 2 were primers. They used $370,000 on social emotional learning back last year from the original CARES Act for SEL competencies and training for administrators and educators. And this is, again, the state admitting it, and then they're excited about it. Then we go to ESSER 2. One of the other fun things, because remember, we're talking about how they're interfering in your child's mental health, they added 140 school counselors and social worker positions throughout the state using about $21,300,000. And then they spent another $100,000 on ESSER 2 to do more social emotional learning. And then what are their plans for... Oh, they also have an equitable and effective schools task force that gives them recommendations on if their stuff is working. So just so you know, this exists.
Justice, would it be fair to say that someone could, like, literally just go onto their state's, like, Board of Education website, or whatever the Department of Education is, and maybe do a search through the documents for equity or equitable and come up with a lot of information?
Oh yeah, they could do that. Oh yeah, these documents are searchable. You can do that.
No. So you guys might want to give it a try, just for kicks. If you have some free time this week, just go onto your school's like State Board of Education and search for equity.
So another evil thing that they do, this is actually more evil than the equity is ethical conversation that Arizona has in their administrative standards. So there is a definition, and I talked about this back when we talked about HR 400 and HR 1812. Or it wasn't 1812, it was HR 1814, about evidence-based interventions. An evidence-based intervention, according to federal law, is one that passes through several tests, and promotes positive student outcomes. What the Arizona Department of Elementary and the Arizona Department of Education, the ADE, says is that evidence-based interventions also include culturally responsive ones. So they basically say that critical race theory is proven to be effective in the classroom for a positive learning outcome. So this is one of these evil sentences that I really want to point out, that they're conflating equity with ethics and cultural responsiveness with evidence-based education.
Mm-hmm. It's so evil. And there's no proof
So
that critical race theory actually amounts to anything. I just want to take
no,
this
if this
question real quick.
no,
Sorry, Justice, go ahead.
no, that's fine. No, that's fine. Take the question. What is it?
ZXY asks, can you please do a whole video on ways parents can homeschool younger children when both parents work outside the home? So I wanted to take this because I want to make sure to refer everyone to Deb Philman's YouTube channel, The Reason We Learn, and she also has a locals community, and she can help. Deb is the homeschool guru. I have never homeschooled any child. Deb has homeschooled many children, so she's the woman to learn from there.
So one of the other evil things that Arizona does is they conflate in-person education with public school, which is what they do here. So many children in Arizona left the public education sphere because of COVID that they had to launch a Ready for School campaign to encourage students and families to re-enroll in their public schools.
Wow.
And they highlighted the benefit. Yes. And you will find stuff like this in the other ones as well. I bet you money to money, especially in places like Michigan and stuff, which have huge homeschooling communities, because Arizona had a boom after when COVID started. So they are desperate to get kids back. Yes.
Yeah, same in New Hampshire as well, to be honest. Like a lot of people took their kids out of school in New Hampshire.
And I want to point this out. We're still talking about the ESSER money. This is what they're going to use it on. They are going to waste taxpayer dollars on getting your kids to go back to government school because they say that is where in-person schooling happens, not at home school or at a private school. I just want to point that out. This is being wasted with taxpayer dollars. Everything we're talking about is being wasted with taxpayer dollars. You're paying for it. So I just want you to, this is not like, oh, it's coming from other funding sources. You are the funding source.
I think it's a really good point.
So this is where, so that is basically all of the really bad stuff. There is more stuff in the Arizona plan that I encourage people to look into, but this is just the stuff that I wanted to cover. There are multiple references in here to a specific section of the ARPA plan, because the ARPA plan is like over 200 pages. So I'm like, okay, I can't read this whole thing. But in these plans, they ask about a section 2001. There's different sections that they bring up. And I said, okay, what does section 2001 of the ARPA plan of 2021 actually state? And this is directly from the federal government. It says, the use of funds, a local educational agency that receives funds under ARPA can reserve not less than 20% of such funds to address learning loss through evidence-based interventions, such as summer learning and summer enrichment, extended day comprehensive after-school programs, extended school year programs, and ensure that such interventions respond to the student's academic, social, and emotional needs and address the disproportionate impact of the coronavirus on the student subgroups described in another section of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965. So
subgroups means the oppressed, right?
It can mean inner cities. It can mean it doesn't necessarily just mean by race, sex, or ethnicity. It can also mean things such as different economic areas, because some states have things constructed in such a way that you can evaluate that with demographic data. There's a long list of them, but race and sex are two of the categories. So let's put that on the table. But yes, some of the categories I actually do agree with. Some of them, I've looked at some of those sections. I believe one of them that they highlight is about students who come from, it has to do with certain geolocations, and that I can agree, because some places are more remote than others because of, different mountain ranges, different places. They're more remote, they're more difficult to get to. So that I can agree with sending more funding to, because that's not something you can control. That's something totally out of the ordinary if you're on a remote mountain somewhere in your small town. Other categories, I have my questions.
Okay.
So I'm going to put that out. So, but just a reminder, that last screenshot was from the federal government. That is explicitly from the federal government.
I'm just sitting over here fuming, Justice. That's my role in this. I'm sitting here fuming. That's what it is.
So on the surface, well, we're going to talk about New Hampshire. Yeah, we're going to talk about New Hampshire for a second.
New Hampshire.
So, yeah, so I don't have state highlights, but their state highlights are actually pretty reasonable. Then I looked at their ARPA plan, and I didn't even make it to page 9. And I was highlighting things because I was actually going to do a video and talk about how New Hampshire was doing the right thing with the money. And then I stumbled across page 9. And at the bottom, it says that they're doing social emotional well-being data through the 603 Bright Futures Survey, a new statewide school climate survey. Now, there's good social emotional learning and there's bad social emotional learning. What we're talking about today is the bad stuff. We're talking about Castle. We're talking about Panorama. This is the bad stuff. We're talking about Project Awake. We're talking about Project Aware. When I saw this, I said, okay, it is in the ARPA plan. So maybe New Hampshire is just doing something to appease the federal government so that they don't go after them. Maybe it is just one of the worst surveys possible. It can't possibly be from Panorama, right? So I looked up, what is the 603 Bright Future Survey? And then I found it was the 603 Bright Future Survey is an annual survey that provides parents, educators, and community members a chance to provide meaningful feedback on how to improve New Hampshire schools. This is from the New Hampshire Department of Education's website. And the survey dashboard includes results. Please contact Panorama Help Desk.
Ah!
And then I went to Panorama, and it's there.
So 603 Bright Futures is code word for Panorama.
It's one of them. So what they do is they use the name of the survey instead of the company, so that you have to check every single. Yes, you have to check every single one.
They're being tricky.
Yes. Uh-huh.
God, I hate these people so much. Well, I know a bunch of state representatives who are going to be informed of this, Keith Ammon. He actually already knows.
I know. You tweeted out at him. As soon as I showed you, you flipped out and you tweeted out at him.
Well, no, but this confuses me though, because honestly, the guy who's basically in charge of education in New Hampshire, he's a friendly. He is. And so why is this happening under his watch? I don't understand.
Because they screwed up and didn't know what they were doing. They don't know what this stuff is.
God damn it.
So this is Massachusetts. It's pretty woke. I just didn't even bother highlighting stuff in it. But I want to go back to this issue of the state standards, because there's administrative and then there's state standards. And then one of the other issues that I found out is superintendent and administrative rubrics. This is from July of 2019 in Massachusetts. And this is where we're going to get into the definitions of what is the definition of all students. So they have different rubrics. These rubrics are actually used in Massachusetts and a few other states by your local school boards to make decisions on if they're going to keep their superintendents or not.
Mm-hmm.
They have priorities, leading with a commitment to equity. This is the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Leading with a commitment of equity means challenging the predictability of success or failure and currently correlates with any social or cultural factor through the disruption of inequitable practices. That sounds like Ibram X. Kendi. I think this is a sentence probably from his book. examination of biases, the model rubric, and then they have new definitions. Remember, the states have a new definition for all students. All students means the phrase all in this document refers to equity for and attention to students from all backgrounds, identities, and experiences. Isn't that so much fun?
So it doesn't really mean all students. All no longer means all.
It so means, and all traumatic experience.
Justice, you know what this is? This is like Animal Farm. This is Animal Farm. All animals are created equal, but some animals are more equal than others. This is literally goddamn Animal Farm.
Yeah. They have a definition for disaggregated student data, which actually means outcomes of specific student populations. And they actually define equity. So this is Massachusetts defines equity. Equity means that all students have access to educational resources, opportunities, and rigor. They need that the right amount in their education across race, gender, ethnicity, language, disability, sexual orientation, family development, and or family background to meet high expectations for cognitive, behavioral, social, emotional growth and development. And then it's adapted from, by the way, there is a National Equity Project and there's a Leading for Equity National Project.
We need to make like a monster like mind map or something of all of these things like publicly. I have a tool we can do it, and it's like we need to make like just this thing where people can go on and like really kind of like work through some of this stuff. But I also have a question, like why does a student need different educational resources based on their sexual orientation? Because I'm old enough to remember a time where kids didn't have to come out in high school. I am, in fact, old enough to remember when Pete Buttigieg was elected to be the mayor of South Bend when he was still in the closet when he was 30. Because he wasn't ready to come out yet, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But then why are we providing educational resources in K through 12 based on sexual orientation?
That's a great question. Anyone want to ask the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education in Massachusetts that question? You should ask the Board of Education in Arizona too, because they got this stuff all over the place. I mean, they don't define equity, but I'm pretty sure that if they're promoting social justice, that this is right about the definition that they're using. I just have this feeling.
You know, it is Massachusetts. You guys are pretty woke. You guys are one of the top states for progressive justice. Did you know, sidebar, did you know that that there is now in addition to the Free State Project, which I know you're a fan of, there is now a progressive state project. Oh my God, I've heard of this.
Yes. I've heard of this.
There is a progressive state project that is helping progressives leave the state of New Hampshire and find their perfect progressive home. And one of those homes is the state of Massachusetts.
Great. Because we
that's okay. You're gonna move here eventually anyway. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm getting to that point. This is just getting ridiculous. So this is now we're gonna actually go into the state indicators. So this is how your school committees are supposed to vote on if they like, and this is other states have this as well. I believe New York has it. Other states that are more centralized have these rubrics or these state standards. Arizona is a little bit more centralized. That's why they have those standards. I'm bringing this up not to talk about things that I've done when I was on school committee, but just to make you understand that there's a lot of stuff that just because ARPA and ESSER money have brought this into the forefront, this is a lot deeper than that. Arizona state standard says to promote social justice. That's back from 2016. New York stuff, I mean, Deb's found stuff from way back and it's not good. This is Massachusetts from 2019. This is pre-pandemic. The Board of Elementary and Secondary Education so voted on this. They said, this is what we want. So, and the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education drafted this up. So one of their state indicators is data-informed decision-making. And to be exemplary as a superintendent, you need to look at evidence from multiple sources about district culture and climate and other information that offers unique perspective on the school and relies on disaggregated data. If you will remember, disaggregated data has a definition. and it means equal outcome.
Oh, good.
So
good. So equity.
we're doing,
because equity is about equal outcomes. Real
yeah.
quick, Justice, I want to take this super chat from the one and only Gabrielle Clark, who's looking very sexy in her profile picture. Oh my God, Gab. Like, I'm preparing an explanation of this confusing phrasing and redefining of words. I'm calling it parallel language messaging. It'll be ready next month. Well, we'll look forward to that. Thank you for your work on that.
Thank you, Gabs. All right, indicator 2A, environment creates opportunities for students to take an active role in preventing behaviors that interfere with learning. What does that mean?
What?
Regularly monitors for and addresses implicit bias in decision-making process.
I was just
so
gonna
the educator is supposed
I was just going to
No,
say
what
that
were you going to
because
say, Carlin?
no, yeah, I was just going to say that because do you remember when I was doing this stuff with 544 and there was that committee hearing that I testified
Yeah.
at, and I just wanted to piss everyone off.
Yeah.
But like there was like a high school student that testified, and she was very proper and put together, and then we found out later she's posting pictures of herself on Twitter holding Mao's little red book. So that high school student was in charge of like their implicit bias squad at the high school to call other students out on their biased behavior.
See, this is the thing, is HB 544 highlighted a lot of issues in that, I forget what area of New Hampshire it was, and I have it as a playlist on my channel. But when one of the senators, it's called, Speak to the Senator or something. It's like a YouTube channel where they just do random stuff. Keith Ammon has been on it. I know they talk with one of the senators in New Hampshire, the current senators, but they talked about in one of the New Hampshire cases that was floating around right before HB 54 came out, that teachers and administrators were shouting at parents who dared to ask questions about the curriculum. Well, this is teaching students or encouraging students to take an active role in preventing behaviors. Well, that's what the teachers in New Hampshire were talking about. They were shouting down people to prevent them from behaviors that interfere with learning and to monitor them to address their implicit bias in the decision-making process. So this is codified what was happening up in New Hampshire. Now, in New Hampshire, your state government doesn't say it explicitly because your state government views education as a decentralized format. And that's actually repeated over and over and over again in your ARPA plan, except for the few little crazy things like the social emotional stuff that they do statewide, which we found out, obviously. But I'm pretty sure some of those school districts have been getting ideas from Massachusetts and California on this, because this didn't get created out of nowhere. Human resource management ensures a district-wide system for recruiting and hiring effective administrators and educators who share the district's mission and increasingly reflect the diversity in backgrounds, identities, and skills.
Identities. So they're going to be taking all of the oppression categories into consideration for hiring. So race, gender, sexual orientation, because they need to be hiring for identity just as much as they need to be hiring for who are the absolute best and most experienced teachers.
Yep. And actually, one of the things too is and I think that this is public now, but some of the state board associations of education. So there's your state board of education, and then there is the association of state boards or state school committees that exists. Those boards of education, those boards of association, basically I'll just call them this, they're clubs for school committee members, let's just call them that, are doing workshops about equity in hiring to increase their amounts of Black, Hispanic, gay, trans educators in their workforces. Specifically, it's not about anything else. It's about race and sex. So I just want to point that out. Which, by the way, since a lot of these states have equal opportunity employment measures, that is completely, you can't.
It's not legal.
You can't prioritize, it's not legal, but they do it anyway because nobody says anything. Family and community engagement practices and standard indicator 3A ensures that all personnel use culturally responsive and collaborative practices.
Wow. And Justice, just for people who might not know, how are they defining culturally responsive? What does that mean?
In Massachusetts? Oh, I've seen they're actually recommending to superintendents to read the book Culturally Responsive Teaching, which we already know is a CRT handbook. So that's what they're defining. That's what they're defining it as. I've seen it a few times. There's a few other educated, yes. And I didn't, and again, it's not just because I was on school committee. People were telling me this way before then, hey, they're using this book. What is that thing?
Yeah, so culturally responsive teaching is one of the things that they've kind of tried to change critical race theory to, which is really funny because it's exactly the same acronym, so they're not exactly being slick about it. There's slightly nuanced differences, but for our purposes, it's basically the same thing. They're making assumptions about students based on their race, their background, things like that, which we don't believe in.
Yeah. In their communications with people outside, they're supposed to be culturally responsive with families about their student learning and performance, and they're supposed to affirm different families' home languages, cultures, and values. So
I'm sure they're doing it in math as well, where they have to use that culture's version of math. And so if a student gets a question wrong, it's not that they got the question wrong, it's that they weren't using the right math.
Which doesn't make sense because all cultures, 1 + 1 = 2. So
no,
I don't.
Wrong. Racist.
Oh, whatever. I'm so done with it. Like, I'm sorry, but my degree is in computer engineering, and I went, I didn't get it on my degree, but it was supposed to be a math minor. I just don't care anymore what these people define anymore. They're like, oh, that's right. I'm like, I just don't. I know you're making it for the shock value, but I'm just like, this is my response to it is like, what? I have such.
Go ahead. Sorry. It's not for the shock value. I literally read the anti-racist math teacher training manual on this channel, and that's what it says, that if a student gets an answer wrong, it might be because their culture uses math in a different way. And teachers should not correct students and should respect them and their culture's version of math. It literally said
for
that.
God's sake. For God's sakes, the Aztec and the Maya know that 1 + 1 = 2. They figured out the number 0. I mean, I'm sorry. This is ridiculous. None of this makes sense.
Did they also do interpretive song and dance about math? Because that's also in the anti-racist.
No, they did not. No. The Aztecs did not do interpretive dance. I have looked into this because I've tried to learn their language. They do not do that.
Might be a little bit racist, I'm just saying. All right, keep going. If I can't get you to shout at least once a live stream, it's just like, we have to break it up, It's a lot. It's heavy, Justice. It's heavy.
I know. I'm giving you I'm probably breaking the spirits of about 1,000 people right now, and I just want to tell you, I would feel bad, but only if you pulled your kids out and homeschooled them already. Those are the only people I feel bad for. Everybody else, you're doing it to yourselves. And I'm not saying that to be mean. Not at the moment. Give me a year from now and I might be a little bit more mean. But I'm sorry, but these are state rubrics. You know what? We don't need to show anymore. Let's just have a conversation about, Inception.
Meta. Okay, we're back.
Inception, yeah. That was funny. I knew I was gonna screw up and do that, but
that's all right.
No, it's fine. This is all over the place. You can find this. New Hampshire, and here's the thing, and I have to vet through a little bit more of it, but in New Hampshire, it's not your state board of education, it's your school boards association, your school boards club, basically, that has come up with different things that they're recommending to people that then the school districts are using. And it's just, if it isn't coming from one place, it's coming from the other. If it wasn't back in 2016, it was 2020. If it wasn't 2020, it's now. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but your state, Arizona, 2016, swing state, deep, but it has some deep red areas. promote social justice in their state's standards. How did we get there? That's what I'm angry about.
People weren't paying attention. This is the thing. People weren't paying
I
attention,
know.
or if they were, they didn't do anything. And this is
And
why. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, and here's the thing. I get it a little bit, but it has been about almost 2 years. We've been in this I'll call it stupid situation. We never should have ended up here. I don't know how people let this slide. I'm quite furious that a few different generations that are still kicking around right now, because I'm gonna have to be the person. I'm 23. By the time I die, this is still gonna be going on. It's gonna be. It could even be worse. I could be living in a worse world. I could be living in a better world. I have to be involved to make that decision now. I have to, because if I don't, I will be in a nursing home where I'm being treated equitably instead of, hey, can you feed me? That's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about me in a nursing home going to die of starvation, because guess what? These people are crazy. And I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but I am 23 years old. All I did was a few Google searches and read a few things, got on a school board, figured out a few things, got myself off because I knew it was pointless. What the hell is wrong with people?
Yeah. No, I feel the same way. And listen, like all last year, I took mountains of grief from the right? Because they were like, well, Carlin, you were a Democrat for 20 years and you just showed up and you just have a lot to learn and you need to sit back and learn. And of course I didn't listen, because I would never listen to that. And like, it's a year, and it's a little over 2 years since I started my red pill journey, right? And I'm more in this shit than most people who were never asleep. Now listen, like I can own that from the time Obama got elected up until like the end of like 2019, I was not paying attention. I can own that. I wasn't paying attention. I was working on my career. I was doing other things. I wasn't really I was not happy when Trump got elected, but it wasn't the end of the world. But I really wasn't paying attention until 2019. And, in that time, I feel like I've done more than most of the people on the right who are paying attention the entire goddamn time. And this all slipped by. And this is why I put much more responsibility on the right, to be honest, because again, the left is goddamn crazy. They're crazy. It's not good. I'm not letting them off the hook, but they're crazy. The right at least has some responsibility in this, because they're the ones that are more grounded to reality, and they abdicate their responsibility every single time.
No, and one of the groups that I am starting to blame for this is, it's not just, I blame a lot of the quote unquote Republicans, I like, and the self-proclaimed conservatives. I'm not one of them. I am my own. I'm an egalitarian. I'm in the middle. I put myself in that category. I don't play on the conservatives, and I don't play with the liberals. What I have an issue with, and I'm starting to get really frustrated with, is I happen to know a lot of people who are self-proclaimed like Kennedy Democrats, and they refuse to understand that this is not the party of Kennedy anymore. This is so far over the rails. And I get it. Partying with the conservatives is not good, because they're also, no offense, but I think they're just as crazy sometimes. They're completely not helping the situation. And I tell them, just stop registering. Just get your name off of having a D next to your name. I'm sorry, but this is ridiculous. I say, take it off. Just be nothing. Just be nothing. Massachusetts, there's no excuse for that. You do not have to be a Democrat to go to a Democratic primary or caucus in this state. It is on the day of, you can show up, you have to choose your party, that's what you do. And I'm actually more for that in all the states, because it would give more opportunity. You have no reason to have that on your street listing. People don't understand this. You can go look at Templeton's street listing. You'll find where I live. I've been a public official. I don't even care anymore. You'll look, and guess what you'll find next to my name? You'll find an I, independent. You can find my registration. I don't get everybody else. I don't know why you're choosing R&D. It doesn't work. It's not working. And it doesn't give you an advantage in the state. It's
I completely agree with you. I'm getting fed up with the moderate Democrats as well because it's like you know what was funny? It was like after January 6th when they started to censor everything, that was like the first crack I saw in a lot of like my old lefty friends, the ones who were like kind of normal, where they were like, I'm not okay with censorship. Like I don't like what happened, but I'm not okay with this. And like they started to crack, and it's like they're willfully pulling the wool over their eyes as well. Like everyone is guilty
They're
in
we-
this.
they're wearing rose tinted glasses, and I'm sorry, but it's not. You can't do that anymore. I people don't understand, and this is why we needed to talk about ARPA today, just to sort of circle all the way back around. The states, with all of this money that's coming in, we are going to see a structured, purposeful economic collapse in the public school systems. That is what's going to happen because this money has to run out at some point. These are one-time funds, supposedly from the federal government. When all of those billions of dollars runs out, we are going to either states are going to either have to change their laws to dramatically increase their taxes, which is what these groups want. They want to tax us really bad. Or, and this is the other part, or the public education system is going to collapse. There's only two options. Either we're going to have to be taxed more or it's going to collapse. There's some of these states are relying too heavily on the ARPA funds to offset the costs of inflation that happened in the past 10 months, that happened in the past 2 years. And nobody understands that. That money isn't going to educators, the people who, it's going towards administrators. They're becoming more administrative heavy. They're becoming higher up, more administrative heavy. There's more school psychologists, there's more school social workers. That's why I pointed that out, because one of the common themes in some of the 50 states is that they brought in more social workers. It is about creating more top-heavy government instead of giving people the tools to help themselves. It's going to collapse. It's not going to last forever. ARPA funds for towns and cities last until about fiscal year 26, if I'm remembering this correctly. The money for school districts, most of them, all of them, I think, about 99%, have to expend those before the end of fiscal year 24. So 24 to 25, 2024 to 2025 is going to be about that last area that you're going to see that. That's when some places it's going to happen a lot sooner. You're going to see it in 2003 to 2004. You're going to see an economic collapse in the public school systems or an economic jump in your taxes. Or it's going to be 2004 to 2005. This is 2021. Next year's 2022. Do the math. This is going to happen a lot quicker than people expect.
So what I mean, what should people do with this information today? I feel like there's a lot of things they can do. I feel like they can use what you've shown them to go into their own state and make sure and just check and see what's going on. I feel like they can email their state legislators and let them know what's going on because they probably have no flipping idea. Obviously we want everyone who can to pull their kids out of the public schools. I don't even think that should even be like a question anymore. If I had a kid today, like, it's funny. Like I once thought that if I were ever to like have a kid, it would be like there'd be nothing that I would enjoy more than being like that parent that every teacher at the school like hates and they like know to get out of the way. Like, and if they try to teach my kid new math, like that's not going to fly at all. Like I wanted to be that parent. Today, I would never put a child in the public schools. Never, ever. And I understand that it's hard and I understand that people have to work. I get all those things. But frankly, a lot of you are working from home now. So it makes it a little easier. And, this is about the mental health and well being of your child. And if that is not your first and foremost concern, then why are you having kids in the first place?
No, people get worried about, if I send my kid off to college, then they're going to get wokeified. If I send my kids to, high school, they're going to get wokeified. If I send my kids to elementary school, they're going to get wokeified. It's not just about becoming woke. This is about their health and their safety and well-being. And I'm sorry, but these high-level administrators don't see that. They see them as dollar signs. And I said this, and I don't know if I've said it on your channel or just on Deb's, but children are not currency. This is what the state government sees your child as. So if you want to play this game, you have to take your kids out and say, I'm done. You're not going to use them as currency for this. I'm going to take my kids out of this situation. I refuse to let you do that. And you need to treat me with respect as a human being and acknowledge my rights as a parent. It's one of the only ways. School districts only listen to money. They don't listen to mobs. They don't listen to federal rules. New Hampshire teachers signed a petition that they would teach critical race theory no matter what. Same happened across in all the other states. What do you think they're going to do if we ban SEL? Because there's good SEL and then there's bad SEL. You're going to do it anyway. They're going to do Panorama anyway. And they do not care about peer pressure from their fellow colleagues. If you are a teacher who goes against another teacher, and issues in Rhode Island that Nicole Solis has been highlighting have been really showing this, because there's a teacher down there that just got put on administrative leave because she spoke out against it. And a lot of teachers have been facing this.
No.
Your administrator, yes, there's a whole, I don't know if she got put on administrative leave or she's just escorted out of her classroom, but I think that's administrative leave until they officially fire her. But wow. Yes, I believe that's something that's happening right now. Nicole would know more. I saw it happening on Twitter and I was like, oh, this is because they're starting to go after them now. And I suspect this is going to happen at some point to people like Frank McCormick and stuff. I mean, you can't
they're
last
already
this
starting
long.
to come after Frank. Yeah, I mean, he's lucky.
That's what I mean.
Long, to be honest.
I know and they don't care. They only respond to dollar bills. So, listen, you want to show up to school districts and school committee meetings? Fine. I can't tell you not to do that. You have the total right to be there. You're a member of the public. But maybe instead of chanting about replacing the school boards, show up with some dollar signs, dollar sign logos, and say, hey, maybe, just maybe, we don't want to pay for this anymore. That's when they'll start to panic and say, wait, what options do they have to take money away from us? Are they going to pay for things that they weren't paying for before? What are they going to do? That is the only civil disobedience that speaks to them. Again, it's not about you. It's not about your kid. It's not about the teachers that stand up for your kids, because they usually get fired, put on administrative leave, or they get cast aside because administrators won't give them raises. They get thrown out of the system.
Right. Because
as you've talked about with the workplace, mediocre workers are the ones that get promoted, not the ones that are actually doing the good work. This is where this all comes together, ladies and gentlemen. This is why the system that we see today is so bad. It's a combination of all things work and study that Carlin has done, which is why she understands this and could go into it. It's the combination of everything Deb has done in her lifetime. She understands it, goes right into this. It is a combination of everything that I experienced when I was in the public school system. I understand it, could go right into this. Many other people. That is why we understand it. It might not be from the workplace environment standpoint. It might not be from the educator standpoint, but it's from a standpoint that's relevant, and we need to understand all of them to get to an understanding that this system is systemically broken. This is the only time I find this appropriate. Public education is systemically racist, systemically bigoted. It is not good with sexual orientation. It is broken, and it is way overfunded. It is not underfunded. That is my message for all of you.
The way that we can actually fix systemic racism right now is to defund the public schools. That's it.
Yeah.
That would fix systemic racism. I'll tell you what. And it's funny too, because so when I tweeted at State Rep Keith Ammon, who in New Hampshire, for you guys who don't know, he was the person that introduced the anti-CRT bill in New Hampshire. He's very passionate about a lot of these issues. And so I tweeted at him when Justice started posting about this, and I said, Keith, FYI, this is in New Hampshire. And he promptly tweeted back and he said, okay, what's the solution? And I said, defund the schools. And he tweeted back and he said, well, the property tax pay like 2 or 3/4 of your property tax goes to pay for the schools. And so I was like, okay, let's repeal the property tax. Or like another idea is to make the property tax optional. Like what if people made the property tax optional to pay? I mean, you can fund the public schools if you want. You can make that choice, but you can also not make that choice if you don't want to.
Or just have steps to lower it. You know, if they don't want to go for either, or maybe the state legislature says, yeah, let's lower the property tax slowly. Let's just take it down 1% every or like 10%, you know, whatever percent they want, take it down in steps. I have to think about it like that because I know from a government standpoint, abolishing a tax will never. It's difficult. It's very difficult to abolish tax.
We don't like taxes in New Hampshire. We abolished a bunch of taxes in our last budget.
I know.
We got rid of
like
hotels and meals tax within the last budget.
New Hampshire's like the only state that can accomplish that. I'm talking about the states that like can lower their taxes. I'm just trying to be reasonable here. New Hampshire's also the only state with a majority of the libertarians. So just to point that out.
New Hampshire will be the autonomous zone of New Hampshire within 10 years.
Well, if the progressive state project works, you guys could be the majority soon. You just got to invite them up. Be like, progressive state project. We have a lot of Democrats that are homeless up here. Take them to Massachusetts.
Now we can do a trade. We can do a trade. For every libertarian Massachusetts sends us, we'll send them 2 progressives.
No, 10. 10 progressives down.
10 progressives for every one libertarian that moves from Massachusetts. It'd be great. People could do like housing swaps or something. Like they could buy each other's houses.
Yes.
It could all be very amicable. Like GTFO. You don't want to be here. We don't want you. So let's part ways in the nicest possible way. And trade. Yes. Let's trade. Yes. We have better maple syrup than you. You know.
You have better taxes. You have better air. You have better roads.
Mm-hmm.
I like this. I really like this idea.
Plan. Yeah. I cannot believe, and I don't know if you've had this experience, like, because I know you come from like a more center place as well. Like, I cannot believe how accelerationist I've gotten in the last year. I can't believe it. And honestly, it's a response to how accelerationist the left got, because this is insane. We are on month what? Like, you know, fucking 19 of 15 days to slow the spread. Like, this is crazy.
But this has been 2 years since the 2020 elections really got into full gear when we started seeing all of this. It's not even about slow the spread anymore. It's about all of this started way back then when Pete Buttigieg was just a twinkle with, you know, was just a twinkle in his eye.
I swear, he used to be normal. There was a time Pete Buttigieg was like running around New Hampshire, like was one of the only people here. He was normal, and then they sucked him into the machine, and he became abnormal.
Well, then he got a little bit. Yeah, well, then he got some money, and then he said, "Oh, money talks." That's what I tell you. Money talks, ladies and gentlemen. That sweet, sweet dollar bill.
Yep.
Everyone wants it.
God, it's so depressing. And it's even like I was watching him on the Sunday morning shows, and he looks different now. He looks different.
Oh, yeah.
He looks like he's been like
not good.
Sucked into the Borg, and he looks like demonic now. They all do. It's crazy.
Every single Democrat that I know in this state that got like, who was really bad, who got elected, like their age, like how much they've aged has just been, I've seen some of them in person. Even my governor, my governor's a Republican, but he's a rhino. Look at Charlie Baker. He looks awful. Like, I'm sorry, but like, even if I wanted to vote for a Republican, like, is he going to make it? Like, I'm sorry, but he doesn't look good. Like, look at the photos. Like, and I think I saw him in person, or there was a photo of him in my town the other day. Like, he doesn't, like, I don't understand what is going on. Like, I thought I aged, and I didn't really age, but I just looked in the mirror and said, wow. I think when I looked in the mirror and I aged, I said, wow, I actually realized what's going on now. Not like, wow, I don't look like I'm still 18 or like 19, but...
I absolutely look like I'm still 25. I just want to say, I definitely do.
Especially on camera, you don't look a day over 27.
That's why I like to have you on my channel, Justice. No, so have you ever seen have you seen Invasion of the Body Snatchers?
No, but my mom has. I've heard about it and I've read a
God.
little bit about it.
You need to watch that movie. Truly, you need to watch that. Everyone needs to. Even if you saw Invasion of the Body Snatchers like back in the day, you need to watch that movie. It is frightening. It's so frightening. Oh my god.
And just a piece of advice. I know we've gone off a little bit topic here, but we needed to vent after all of that. I think that was quite a bit of a lot of information that people didn't know was going on.
Yeah.
Just to and just another point out, if you go and look through your state's ESSER plans, I think I've tweeted it out several times, but there's a page for it. It's actually, you know what? I'm gonna pull it up and we're gonna look at it. I'm gonna pull it up on my screen. State plans. Here we go. I'm gonna show people how they can look for this stuff because I think, especially for ARPA, I don't think people understand what's going on. Carlin, if you want to switch back over, I have my. We're not gonna go
Ready?
Inception style.
Excellent.
Ready?
There you go.
So if you go, it's here. It's the Office of Elementary and Secondary Education. This is the federal site. These are the state plans for ARPA. These were required. And if you go through here, it'll tell you how much your amount is. The communication materials, press releases, and the pilots, these are all here. This section and this section, they're the same thing. So don't even, it's just for process purposes why they copy this over to this section. And you can go through, you can click on, I don't know, let's go down to, not Massachusetts, that's boring. I already know Massachusetts is bad. Let's look for, like, for example, New Hampshire. You'll see New Hampshire's has like individuals reconstruction, addressing equity, educator fatigue, has all this stuff. And then you can click on the actual plan itself for New Hampshire. And then you can go to, page 9.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll find Success Free Bright Future Survey. And then you can go down even more. And you can find out, actually, what did, I'm actually going to look. Let's see if they actually put what they spent for CARES money on. I don't know what section that would be on. Let's see if I can do a quick lookup. I know, I'm like sprinting through. Sorry, everybody. I'm like, how much money did they spend on this? SEA response. Oh, God. New Hampshire doesn't do the little bubble. Hampshire, the one doesn't. It's like so annoying. CARES money, CARES X funds. Yeah, no, I have no. Oh, they do it. Oh, they do it in this format. Oh, this sucks.
Oh, what does this
mean? I'm not going to. This stuff is just about how they did different funding sources, but this is going to take a while to get into on like where they actually spent money because they did it in narrative and point by point format. They didn't do it in the way that most of the other states did. Yeah, your state like does weird stuff. Oh, we're back. Sorry.
Meta. Inception.
I got it. I turned it off.
So Justice, what else do we need to talk about today to make sure people have what they need to know?
That's a really good question. So one of the other things that they're doing, and I need to pull up some more documents on this, but I can confirm it is happening in several states. Their state standards are, ARPA's woke. Let's just call it like this. ARPA's woke. It has SEL. It has stuff in it. The actual state plans are woke. They have stuff in it. South Dakota's is actually pretty bad too, so people should take a look at that one, the South Dakota ESSER plan. But the other thing that I want to mention is that it's not just in the administrative standards at the state level or the superintendent's rubrics or the principal's rubrics. They have systems called social emotional learning walks now, where teachers go through on administrative teams. They have administrative teams with schedules that they have set up to go through and to evaluate based on the professional standards of the state with social emotional learning through the lens of social emotional learning, how students and teachers are doing in the classroom. So now that is part of teachers' evaluations. So I just want people to understand that if you hear about learning walks, social emotional learning walks, cultural learning walks, this is not like a privilege walk where they ask your child to do things out in the middle of the game field and tell, oh no, have you, do you have these privileges? Do you not have these privileges? These are teams of administrators trained to go in. And if your teacher is not doing social emotional learning, they're going to get poor scores. So I just want people to understand that they have the state standard of social emotional learning. They are doing it through the lens of social emotional learning, and then they're doing social emotional learning. So it's when we talk about I think rose tinted glasses is the best way to sort of visualize this. They are literally putting on rose tinted glasses, SEL glasses, to view through everything so that people can, that's how they're evaluating everything. I mean, there's no other way to describe this. And the teachers and administrators standards themselves prove that that's being done. They're also probably in Arizona doing it with, social justice stuff. Arizona, actually, Catherine Barrett actually found out for me, and I did post this out, that Arizona is using Castle. It's not statewide, but they are using Panorama. Some of the biggest school districts are using Panorama. So when Sloan talks about how Panorama is big, I don't think she's talked about the numbers. I think she's wrong on her numbers. I think because it's been brought up so many times, I think it is the dominant SEL program in the United States right now. And I think that getting rid of just North Carolina isn't going to solve the problem. I think that it has accelerated to the point where they're getting so much money from the states that this doesn't even matter anymore. I think North Carolina is chump change. It's becoming chump change.
Well, I mean, we saw, again, to reiterate, in New Hampshire, they're using Panorama, but they're calling it the name of the survey, so you wouldn't know.
They're calling it the name of the survey.
They're calling it the name of the survey, and the name of the survey is going to be different in every single state because 603 is the area code in New Hampshire. That's why they called it 603.
Oh my God!
Yeah, that's the area code.
I didn't know that. So they did it to make it look like a local survey, and it's not.
Yeah.
Oh
they did
my
it to make
gosh!
it look like a local company, and it's not.
That helps me a lot more because there's a lot of other programs that are listed in these, and I don't know what they do. They're called the Arizona State this. They're called the Equitable Task Force this. I'm actually wondering, because they're doing stuff like that with Panorama, I'm now wondering, and I hate to conjecture like this, but I think I'm pretty much on the nose here. I wonder if they're calling things these, the local chapter, whatever, and you can trace it back and it's part of like the National Equity Council thing or whatever, the thing that I brought up in Massachusetts. I wonder if that's what we're looking at, because we're dealing with people who are collectivists. They have an agenda for collectivism. So there's no way that they are not using local terminology to hide that they are actually national organizations at a higher level. And because that's what happened. That's what the 603 Bright Future Survey. Nobody, unless you looked that up, and unless you went on the New Hampshire Department of Education's website, I was like, I wanted to have it as an example of a non-woke survey. And I found Panorama because I was praying, because I knew that you had good contacts in your state, that this wasn't happening. And I was so upset that I had to take a break after that because I wanted to do a positive video and I couldn't even do that with New Hampshire.
Justice, I feel like we need to create like a giant spreadsheet or something where all of this is laid out, and just like a bunch of us just need to like hunker down for a couple days and split up the states and go through the different states and put this all in one spreadsheet for people to see. Like, what is the name of the survey in the state? What organization is it affiliated with?
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone else has done that.
I was thinking about doing something like in my locals community, I talked about how we need to start like a new Wikipedia. I feel like that'd be a great place to put it all in.
That's a really good idea. That's a really good idea. You should do that. I would help.
I would just have to get, there's a few components to that. I would need like an actual group of people who wanted to help me, because it's a little bit outside my forte to do a Wikipedia, but it's not, we need to have things. This is not, we need our own systems. And I don't care if it's a Wikipedia, but we need something. What I'm angry about is that there are, in what should have been my industry of computer engineering, people are leaving in the droves. Why are they leaving? Probably because of woke issues, but probably because of what the military is doing and they're freaking out. I could have walked in and become a programmer and probably set my own salary. I have chosen not to do that. I haven't worked for a company. I've never signed an NDA for a programming company. I refuse to do that. Here's why. Because I know that in this culture war, I am essentially a weapon. If I use my talents correctly, I can help build the next generation of materials. But I need more people like me to speak up and say something. If you have any programming experience, we need a group together. Antifa's got one. We don't have anything. I am the only person who has jumped up and down. The only other person who I know who has a software background is oh damn, what's his name from and I know I don't even watch them anymore, but it's from Unsafe Space. What's his name? It's
Carter.
It's Carter. It's Carter Laren. He is the only other person I know with a software background. I'm sorry, and I know they're not going to help me in this situation, but there's got to be other people like that. He's the only other person I know.
The fucking thing. They should. People need to put personal bullshit aside and do what is right for once. Listen, I will help you, and we will find people who can do this. Because if I'm going to have this platform, which I never wanted to begin with, but if I'm going to have this platform, I'm going to fucking try to do something good with it. We're gonna figure this out. We're gonna figure this out.
I'm sorry, but I need programmers. Like, I know I'm not super experienced. I'm 23. I've never really worked on a program, in Wikipedia's level or whatever, the different types of, databasing systems and stuff like that. But I'm not an idiot. And I'm sorry, but other people with even basic programming experience or people who are in college right now need to step up. They need to step up and try and teach themselves, because they're not going to learn this stuff in college. They need to get out and they need to start experimenting. And people who are leaving computer engineering places or people who are leaving different software companies like Facebook, Google, and Apple, I don't care what your NDA says, because this doesn't apply in this situation. You can build a new platform using your own code that is not proprietary starting today. You don't have to do what they do. You don't have to be quiet and complicit. I'm sorry, I'm sick of it. I know that there's whistleblowers jumping out here and there, but they need to start realizing it's not about the money. It shouldn't be about the money. It shouldn't be about the clicks and the likes. It will come if you just try something. I'm sick of it. I have other projects that I would like to do too. There's other things that I like to do. I know how to do stuff for gaming. I know how to do stuff for other things. I would like to produce content that is not. I would like to produce the other, what Jody Shaw says when she tries to do her music and stuff. The opposite of what we're experiencing, a counterculture, if you will. But we can't do, I'm sorry, locals can't be the only one. Rumble isn't going to help us.
No, Rumble's gonna be shit.
No, the other ones are not going to help us. I like locals, but it can't just be about social media. It's got to be about resources. It can't just be Deb on her one website. We got to have, and I know Deb's been struggling with this too. They don't know how to platform themselves. They don't know how to sell themselves. They don't have any abilities. I could do stuff. I've worked on, there's different free website platforms and stuff. I've worked on the back end. I do other things too, but it can't just be me. I have to either choose doing Freedom of Information Act requests on gigantic nonprofits, or I have to choose doing research on this and going on your channel, or I have to choose working on a Wikipedia, or I have to choose doing some, trying to find alternate learning platforms, or I have to choose teaching other people how to start educational collaboratives and nonprofits they can get out of the public school systems. I cannot do all five and have my day job.
Here's what I think we need to do to start. And we're having a very public brainstorm right now. So if anyone has any ideas, please speak up. Please get in touch. Leave a comment. Send me a DM on Twitter. Reach out to Justice. So but I think where we do need to start, and this is something I've been thinking a lot about lately, is we need to start coordinating among like the good people that are in this for the right
Yes.
reasons, like you, me, Deb, Paul Rossi, Frank McCormick, like Nicole Solis, Gabrielle Clark, like all of the people that are like legitimately doing this. And I think that one of the things we need to do is come up with a list of like, if we could do every single thing to both do the goddamn journalism that the journalists refuse to do, but also give people resources to help them get their kids out of the schools. Like, we need to have like a massive brainstorming session about what that means, and then we need to figure out like, what do we have the resources to do, what skill sets do we need to have, and we need to start finding people and bringing them in and divvying things up. And people have got to come to the table, man. If you guys want to solve this problem, or let's just not even say solve right now, because we are never going to solve this problem, but if you want to understand what we are dealing with, we need to do what Justice has been doing in his free time, like to do discovery about what is going on and make this information public and get this information into the hands of people. And one of the things that I would absolutely start like asking people that are watching this to do, make sure that you are bringing the information that you've learned here and telling your friends and telling the people in your
Yeah.
community. Like, that is this is like a very simple action item that any single person can do, is to go and tell your friends what is going on.
No, and one of the other things is too is we need to basically have a constitutional convention version 2.0, because we need to bring the best minds together and try and figure out what in the world is going on. And we also need to start recruiting talent. I'm sorry, but we can't. Each of us is coming from a very different place, and each of us has a very different speciality that we could give on to people and start to direct things if we had the people to do it. The problem is that each of us is finding another person with a different skill set. We're complementing each other, but it's either all or nothing. We either have to work together to use both of our skill sets to get to a solution, but we don't have anyone helping us. It's
Yeah.
just, even with Kieran, he is the only journalist that I know of that is doing real journalism.
Yeah.
And we can augment that because of the information that we know. But then, like, you can't program. I can't ask you to help me build a Wikipedia. I'm sorry, Dr. B. That doesn't work. Gabs can't do it. Nobody can. I'm like in my own little zone over here saying, hey, I know a few things. I kind of know where to start with this. I don't know how to do it. I'm 23, but I just.
But we know, but we have, I mean, at least like again, like I have the ability to put this out to a lot of people, right? And there are people out there that can do this. And maybe it's just a matter of like, maybe just a small group of us just needs to get started and build some sort of list,
Yes.
and then we can go out with more. And Adrian even said it, I think it was Adrian in the chat, and this is an idea I've been thinking about for a while, and I frankly have just gotten burned out and haven't moved forward. But like, we need an unwoke army. This is what this is. And it's like, people have got to come to the plate to do this, because it is the right thing to do. Like, trust me, you are not going to get rich doing this stuff. I have
No, you're
taken, for as
not.
much as I'm called a grifter, I took a pay cut to do this stuff, like a pretty significant goddamn pay cut. And it's fine. And I'm happy to do it because I think it's the right thing to do. But like, we need people who are in it for the right reasons. And I don't want any fucking personality bullshit or arguments about what is the right way to do this, or like condemning James Lindsay on Twitter or any of that fucking bullshit. I am so sick of it. And I'm not lecturing anyone in particular right now, but I've just fucking had it, Justice. Like, I am a person that, like, I want to do shit in the real world. I want to solve problems.
Yeah.
And then I want to go sit on my couch and watch movies and knit. And right now, I can't do either because of the constant fucking bickering and bullshit that takes place. I just
No,
had
and
to
I'm
get that
just going
off
to
my
say,
chest.
I had to spend, like, instead of doing research on this, which I had done a bunch of research on, I had to take time out last week and put in public records requests. And I'm still, like, looking to see and adjusting that. I'm doing public records requests on FAIR because I'm sick and tired of it. I'm done with this nonsense.
Fired.
I've already put in requests with the New York State Department, and I know in less than 20 days I'm going to get a response from them. So you know what, Brian, if you're watching this, guess what? I've already put in the request.
We're gonna know if you filed the 501c4 for your advocacy fund. buy-in.
Well, we're gonna know if he talked to New York State about it. I'm still trying to get stuff on with the IRS right now, but it's ridiculous. I'm sick of it. I just haven't had the time to go to the post office or to fully look at the form and be like, is this form correct? Is this the exact way that I want to word things and, the different stuff? But I've already New York State Department's already bringing up information. I'm going to find out.
FAIR should have already done every single thing that we just said. Fucking FAIR should have already fucking done this. I'm sorry. I'm not angry at you.
No. And in my public records request, because I've already shown you what some of the stuff that I'm looking for, I suspect 100% it's not going in 50. I'm suspecting that there's other different types of different types of tax exempt organizations that they're looking through. And I 100% suspect it. I think there's maybe, a 527 organization that exists that we don't know about. I think there might be a C2. I think there might be a C4. I'm done. I've had it with all of this nonsense. And you know what? And the reason I bring up FAIR and the reason why I'm bringing this up and why I have to waste my time and do this is because they have people that they stole to develop curriculum and to develop websites. They stole stuff. We know this. Carolyn has exposed this. I'm going to go off of her word. We know it. I cannot get those people to help me, even if we could find them because they're hiding, to help with working on projects because they've taken them.
Yeah,
they've
taken them, and a lot of them are really unhappy where they are because I'm fucking talking to them right now. It's so infuriating.
And I was thinking about this before when we talked about when I'm like, oh, I want to start, do a Wikipedia page on this stuff, start like my own counterculture programs and different things like that. All I'm sitting to myself and thinking is, FAIR has all these resources. And they took all these programmers, all of these graphic artists, all of these developers. They stole people's stuff. Some of it destroyed relationships. And guess what? We can't use that to network build because FAIR's got a monopoly on it and they did damage. Other organizations have done damage too. Let's just not get into those at the moment. But other organizations have done. It's not just FAIR, but FAIR has done damage. And they've done a monopoly on it. And I'm sorry. I don't care anymore. I don't care what is going on at this point, how my name gets put out there. I'm sorry. I'm on a board of a 501c3 organization, an actual 50, it's a small one. It doesn't have all the corporate stuff in it, but it just, when FAIR stuff came out, I was going to pull a lot more documents than what I've been doing right now. Carla knows this. I was like, a couple of days later, I was like, if they had not gotten certain information, let's just talk about this. Their timeline is coming up. If it's not me, somebody else has already filed information. There's already people who already figured out how to do this. So if it's not me, because as soon as I get it, I'm going public and I'm paying for it. As soon as I get that information, I'm going public with it. So watch out, because if this happens with any other organization, you can bet sweet money on it that I'm going to keep looking at it because I'm sick of it. They've stolen the intellectual resources of the last generation, and we can't use them to fix this. Again, I am one computer engineer who works in municipal government, who shouldn't be working in municipal government, who should be doing other things, who is doing investigative journalism. And we need a constitutional convention 2.0. I thought about this over a year ago. We need to have a group. We need to just divvy things up and say, hey, we each have different skills. We don't need a centralized plan. What we need are the people, and we need to know where their heads are at, and we need to know what we can do. I don't care what, Carlin does on her free time. If it helps us, it helps us. I don't care where it comes from. I don't care if it's Gabs. I don't care if it's no left turn in education. I like no left turn in education. I like what's going on with parents defending education. People need to step up and step out of their comfort zones. I don't care if you have an NDA with Twitter. That's not the problem that we're looking at. You can build other platforms. You can build other things. You don't have to work for locals. You don't have to do stuff. There's other ways for civil disobedience. There's other ways that we could brainstorm this. We could be developing so much more. We shouldn't let these businesses... what's annoying about this whole thing, and I had this realization the other day, was that we are doing what the woke claim to be doing. We are fighting against the establishment. We are fighting against big corporate, big pharma, big tech. We're fighting against big government, and we're fighting against thought police. All the things that they claim to do, we're doing, and we're not.
Yeah.
How the revolving door swings.
It's so ridiculous. But I feel like you know, there are enough good people, and some of them are in the chat right now. Like, let's start communicating about this, guys, and let's seriously start trying to coordinate something. And maybe it's just like a meeting with a brainstorm to get a list of problems or create a mind map that we can start to work from, and people can raise their hands and say, I know how to do this, or I know how to do that, or I know a guy that can do this. Like, no one is coming to save us. No one is coming to save us. And we've just got to, like, we've got to stop focusing on nonsense. We've got to stop. Like, I understand that sometimes the nonsense is fun and the nonsense is sexy and the nonsense gets likes, but like, as someone who, I'm sorry, like, I've gotten millions and millions of views on social media, like, it doesn't mean anything. And I know, like, and I say that knowing that there was a time in my life when I thought it did. And then it happened, and it happened tens of millions of times. I got 27.5 million views on that Coke Be Less White tweet. It didn't change anything. Not really. I mean, it got the training pulled down off of LinkedIn, which was awesome. And it got that into the cultural zeitgeist. But in reality, like in terms of like me as a person, like it didn't make me happier or better at my job or feeling more fulfilled or any of that. You know what makes me feel fulfilled? When I actually help people and solve fucking problems. And I say this because I know that like we're literally on social media right now. I understand that getting the notifications, you know, gives you that serotonin rush, and it feels really good, and it feels good to get that feedback from people, but it is not real. It's not real, and it
No,
will not last.
And I just want to bounce off of that and say I've worked with a Division 1 and a really successful Division 1 team just as a basic staffer. I've been on a school committee, and I would never go back and do any type of work in college and coach and do that stuff, even though it was really fun and I really enjoyed it and I wanted to do stuff in my free time with that I thought I'd get to do when I graduated college. I can't even go and do certain things right now because I had to choose, choices had to be made, and I had to think for myself, okay, if you choose this job that's going to help you do this, you can't do that. And if you choose that, then you also can't. So it's just, I would love to coach people. I would love to help people learn different things, but I can't do that right now because of how messed up this culture war situation is and because of where things are right now. I have to wait again. I didn't go to school for journalism. I hate doing research. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I
I
do
just like
too,
to do
man.
stuff. It drives me nuts. I
I did go to school for journalism. I lasted as a journalism major for about 2 weeks. Literally, I went to school for I entered the College of Communication at Boston University to be a journalist. 2 weeks, and I was done. And here I am doing fucking journalism. And it's just like, and you know what? Maybe like, you know, we'll create like a bad news bears type of group. That's fine. Maybe we don't accomplish anything in the big picture, but at least we'd be able to focus our energy well, and at least we'd be trying. And maybe if we try, and maybe if we get some wins, then other people will try a little bit harder than they're trying right now. Maybe we can inspire others to do it, or at least try to inform them about what's going on, you know? Because no one else is
again, we
doing
all
it.
have no one else is doing anything, and the problem is that we all, even just look at people like, I'm trying to think, Deb has a unique skill set, you have a unique skill set. Everyone who has gotten into this, it either complements or it's a totally different element. And we just we're so we need a meeting of the minds. And I'm not talking about like we need to bring fair into this or we need to bring the big corporate
No,
overlords or the big donors. I don't want them there. I
no.
want it to be like, back in the 1700s. I do not want those people there. I want only the people who are going to be able to figure this out, talking together and say, hey, what are what are the projects that we want to accomplish year one? What do we want to accomplish year two? What do we want to accomplish year five? What do we want to accomplish year 10? Because we need successes and we need to feel like we've done something that we know works or that we can find out if it's going to work or not. Because I feel like we're groping into the darkness and we don't know what we're grabbing at and we're just trying to do anything. You got lucky with Be Less White. You got totally lucky with that.
That's true.
Gabs got lucky she got national attention that her case is so good. They got lucky. They've been handed stuff because people are so incompetent. Deb's people are, even No Left Turn existing, even Parents Defending Ed existing, if you know their stories, it's a miracle these things exist. It's just, we cannot keep hoping for happenstance solutions. Happenstance, haphazard, happy, all comes from the Greek word for just luck or just, it's a matter of circumstance. I'm sick of playing with luck. I want to make my own luck in this. I'm sick of it. I want to play on my terms. I want to play on my ball field, and I want to kick it in the direction that I want. I'm sick of playing on their field. I'm sick of playing with their balls. I'm sick of it. And I'm not going to go walk off the field. No, I'm going to say, you have had your turn in your home court. You get to come to mine. This is ours. I'm sick of it.
Yeah, no. I agree. I want to take some super chats that have come in. TPS says, librarian here. I can run awesome Google searches. Dude, welcome to the team.
Reach out.
Nick H says, hate to say it, treat this as war, organized, plan of attack, logistics, support, end goal, and how to sustain it for long-term efforts. Thank you, Nick H. Yeah.
I've said that. I've said this is a game of Risk.
Yeah, and I never played Risk, so I need to be around people who, and I suck at chess. I really suck at chess. Helleg says, time for Bletchley Park 2.0. I don't know what that is. That sounds British.
I don't know.
Kieran is here, so maybe he can explain to us what that is. TPS says, we need to act now. They're going to start hiding. Well, I mean, the thing of it is like, they're not hiding. They're lit. What Justice showed you today is public. This is all public. They're doing it right in front of people. That fucking Antifa teacher in Notamas was hanging Mao on his wall. They're doing it in public. They have such hubris with the way they're operating because they don't think anything's going to stop them. And you know what? Like, maybe they're right, but this is where the code breaker. The code breaking thing. What the hell was that? That Benedict Cumberbatch movie.
Yes. Is it the Enigma machine? Is that what it's called? Or am I totally?
Yes.
Yes.
Need a fucking Enigma machine. All right, Justin.
To break all their
go ahead.
No, to break all their codes, because all students doesn't even mean all students anymore.
I was right that it was British, though. I was right that it was British.
You were right. You were right. It was British. You were right.
All right, Justice. So we've been going for almost 2 hours, and I feel like we need to talk offline and start coordinating some shit because, like, I have had it. I really have. My patience has run out, and I felt like, for me, it's such a weird situation because, like, for all of 2020, I looked at some of these, like, journalists on the right, and I was like, they know what they're doing. They're reporting the right things. Like, I don't need to worry about it. And now I know emphatically that no one is coming to help us. No one.
Yeah.
And these organizations that pop up, they have no interest in helping at all. They're life rafts for people who think they're going to get canceled and want to make sure they can earn a living. That's what they are. That's what almost all of them are. Not all of them. Again, we've mentioned a couple good organizations. So there are really good people doing good work out there, but some of these more massive ones, they're just life rafts and ego trips, and that's all they are. They don't do shit. They aren't interested in solving problems. If they were, If they solved the problem, they wouldn't have a reason to exist. They're like any other nonprofit. If a nonprofit dedicated to solving hunger actually solved hunger, there would be no reason for that nonprofit to exist. Like people like you and people like me, we just want to go back and be normal people. We don't want to have to deal with this shit.
I don't want to do this anymore.
So we'll talk offline. Where can people find you if they want to connect?
So my DMs are open on Twitter at JusticeJHG. That is at JusticeJHG on Twitter. You can also find me on Locals at justicegraves.locals.com. I've been neglecting it the past week because I've been trying to figure out how to do freedom of information requests on FAIR, and I had a bunch of other stuff going on, but I'm going to start being more active. I post pretty infrequently when I start to do crazy stuff on there. So when the traffic on my local starts to go up, when I start making a lot of posts, what that should translate into is, oh no, there's a lot of stuff going on. I actually do a locals only podcast on there where I debrief on a lot of the stuff that I'm going on. If you had been on there, you probably would have known that I was doing freedom of information requests on FAIR already. So
I knew you were doing it already.
All of your locals knew.
Indeed they did. Indeed they did. So make sure you join Justice's Locals, guys. Please support him if you can by becoming a supporter. Join my Locals as well while you're there. And of course, I'm sure we'll be like half the people in the chat right now are Locals people. So I'm sure we will all be coordinating in Locals to see what we can put together. Maybe we'll start a channel in the Discord or something like that. So anything else for today? Have we vented?
Just fire.
Feel good?
Just fire brimstone and you can't, just ready to go because can't save the system, everyone. That's the end message.
All right. Well, thank you guys for hanging out today. Now, there is a chance, I don't have final confirmation yet, but there is a chance that at 5 p.m. tomorrow, I will have a chapter lead from FAIR on this channel to talk about what the FAIR chapters actually effing do, because I have no idea. If anyone is in a FAIR chapter, and I genuinely mean this, leave a comment and let me know what you guys do, because every single time I meet someone that is like, I'm a member of FAIR, and I go, what do your chapters do? And they go, I don't know. So we're possibly gonna hear from a chapter lead tomorrow. And I will let you guys know when that is officially scheduled. I'm just waiting for final confirmation. And you know, if it doesn't happen this week, it might happen next week. So we'll see. But that's all we have for today, guys. Please make sure you mount that like button on the way out the door. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because then you'll be able to see my posts about what's going to be coming up. And please, again, join us on Locals where we can actually have real conversations. Thank you guys for spending a couple hours with us. We hope you learned something. We'll see you soon.